Hello everyone, it's Carrie from PhotoBook pHaNaTiC, and I have created this video on engagement to share with you today. You're going to be learning about what engagement is, why it is important to design, and the different ways to create engagement. I'll be sure to show you some example PhotoBook pages that employ these ways so you can see firsthand how it looks. In fact, let me show you the examples right now as I talk a little bit about the design process. On a side note, I've cut and pasted my photo page designs from several different albums onto a slideshow. You will notice a white border of varying sizes going either horizontally or vertically along the page designs, because these came from albums that were either square-shaped or rectangle-shaped. Please ignore the white borders, they're not part of the design. You know, the great thing about engagement is that it can be applied to any design, whether you're a fellow digital photo book designer like myself, who uses Shutterfly Media, or maybe you use a different digital media, or perhaps you make traditional scrapbooks with paper piecing or even card making. Yes, any and all of these crafts can benefit from engagement in their designs. Now, hopefully you've had a chance to check out some of my other design videos because engagement is only part of the design process. The other very important part is interest, which is composed of randomizing and aesthetics. Randomizing stresses the importance of avoiding patterns to create more interest for the reader, and aesthetics is all about color and embellishment selection that complement the photos. Now I have individual videos dedicated to these topics that show some great examples, or if you would just like an overview of the design process, then I would recommend watching my PhotoBook pHaNaTiC Introduction to Design video. So let's focus our discussion on engagement. Well, the most obvious questions are, what is engagement and why is it important? When a reader is engaged, it means that they have become captivated with the design such that they feel immersed in the story. Engaged readers feel like they have experienced something, and this is so important because this experience becomes a connection between the reader and the people or event in the photos. So long after the event has taken place or the people in the photos have moved on, the reader can still make a connection with the photos, and this connection plants the seed of a memory within the reader. Think how special this will be to people like your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. By using engagement, readers can have a nearly first-hand experience just from opening the photo book. So from this description, you can tell that engagement is a very powerful tool that really sets apart the photo books that are just a collection of images to photo books that use images to tell a story. Engagement creates a much richer experience, and that's why it's so important. Okay, now it's time to really talk about the different ways to incorporate engagement into photo books and show their corresponding examples. So the two categories of engagement are text elements, where you engage the reader by reading something, so it involves words, and the other category is visual elements, where you engage the reader by focusing their attention on something that is not text. And these two categories are not mutually exclusive. In fact, many of my photo page designs use both text and visual elements. Let's take a look. We're going to focus first on text elements, which are honestly more important than visual elements because they provide information and details about the people or event, and often this is a first-hand recollection, so it's very accurate and true. This is the information that will pass through people and families for generations to come, and this is how readers make a connection to the event and people. Ultimately, this instills memories. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can add text to a photo book page, but let's start off with information text, which is exactly as it sounds. Facts and descriptions of the people and event pictured, usually in a paragraph form. Let me just flip through a bunch right now to give you some ideas. First off, you can add information directly to the background paper, as I've done on this example. You can add a ribbon element and text on that. In fact, for this particular page, I created a YouTube recipe video revealing the exact background, ribbon, and sticker embellishments I used to create it. Check it out, and you can make this page for your photo book on Shutterfly Media. For a vintage feel, add a sticker that's a postcard, and then use a handwritten font to text your information. In the same manner, you can do that on this historical site card. How about a sticker that looks like a piece of scrap paper? You can place a text box on top with a handwritten font and then add a paper clip to give it a dimensional look. How about a file card? Check out this outdoorsy themed photo book page that's great for camping, hiking, backpacking, and scouting events. I created a recipe video on YouTube for this page, so if you want to know the exact background frame, stickers, and text font I used to make it, be sure to watch it. When I do a page for school or camping, I love the look of texting on top of a loose leaf paper. It looks like a page has been torn out of a notebook. You can even layer some ribbon and stickers and text on that to make a personalized creation, as I have done on this New Year's page, which I also happen to have a recipe video for. Be sure to check out those recipe videos so you can recreate some of these pages for your photo book. So as you can see, there are many creative ways to add information text to a photo book page to make it interesting and engaging for the reader. Have an event that you documented over several photo book pages, and you've kind of run out of information to add, but you still have some really great photos. How can you make the page engaging without it being images only? Well, that's where the use of emotion text can be really handy, and there's a couple of ways to do that. Take a look at this awesome beach photo page. I used the picture as background paper, and I made good use of the dead space in this photo by placing a quote in the sky. Now, I've talked about dead space in some of my other videos, but in case you haven't had a chance to see them, the dead space is part of the photo where there's nothing important. So if it was cropped, covered, or written on, it would not impact the meaning of the photo. But the dead space can be really helpful when arranging photos and deciding the order in which to layer photos, or if you need some space for a sticker. Like in this monkey photo. I used a sticker that looked like fabric to cover the stone, and I placed a text box on top, to which I added a quote about animals. So you might be wondering where I got the quotes for these pages, and honestly, all I did was a Google search for beach quotes and animal quotes. It was super easy. But for some photo book pages, a quote might be too much. Maybe you just don't have a large enough dead space for the quote. Well, if you find yourself in this predicament, you can try another type of emotion text, which involves adding just a single word to the picture. Check out this photo book page of Neuschwanstein Castle. I also have a photo book recipe video for this page with the dark, rich navy and red and white embellishments. This recipe could be applicable to a lot of potential events like 4th of July and Father's Day. I really like these photos, and you'll notice that I do have some dead space, but I wanted the reader to look at the pictures and focus on how the castle is so massive and intimidating. I thought adding a quote would take their attention away from that. To put emphasis on my impression of the castle, I place single words within the dead space, which kind of works to project ideas in the reader's mind and give them the impression that I want. Now you'll notice that I still have some information text on the page, but it's not directly on the photo or competing with the photos for attention. Here's a little side note about text. In general, try to limit your text to about 3 things per page. Honestly, your photos are supposed to be the main focus of the page, and the text is just there for engagement. But if there's more text than photos, the reader becomes overwhelmed with the information. Your photo book has become more like a textbook, and the reader is going to lose interest and move on. If you have a lot of information, text to share, place it on several pages. And what's even more engaging is to make a story out of the information and split it up. So it becomes more like a to-be continued story, and that is highly engaging because the reader wants to know what's going to happen next. Here's an example of that with a quote. We have a little girl climbing a hill, and then a photo of the view from the summit. I found a great quote that's separated into 3 parts, and it's placed in the dead space of 2 photos and finished on the background paper between the final photos. This is a fantastic example of engagement because not only does the quote work really well with the photos, but you need to read all 3 parts to truly understand the meaning. The reader becomes engaged because they want to know what's being said. Reading only part of the quote doesn't make any sense because then you're left on a cliffhanger, and no one likes that. It's human nature to make sense and find meaning in everything. Check out this beach page where I also use the split quote technique on the left side of the page. Sky above, sand below, peace within. Notice that I use sticker elements to complement each part of the quote to add some interest. Now let's talk about how you can use both text and visual elements to make a very engaging photo page by creating a story. On the right page, we have something called the seaweed spectacle, and the reader can sense from the title and the photos that something's going on, which immediately gets the reader's interest. Upon further inspection, you'll notice some numbered stickers in the corners of the photos, and these match up with the information text along the bottom of the page. This setup ensures a play-by-play account of the situation. The reader now understands it to the degree that they could retell it, almost as if they were there themselves. Let's take a look at another example of this idea, but used in a different way. When taking a photo that includes several important sites, you can number each one and then create information text with the corresponding numbers. Again, this combines both the visual elements of the numbered stickers with the text elements of information. Super engaging. Okay, now it's time to switch gears and focus on visual elements. Well, there's one exception to the rule of patterning, and that is when you use photos to show movement. When the reader comes to this page, they notice right away that something going on with the bottom photos. Once they realize this, they will instantly start with the photo on the far left and follow across the bottom to see the various stages of the girl jumping into the water. It's almost as if they are right there, watching it happen in real time. How cool is that? Another thing I want to mention on this page is the use of font variety in the quote. Now the quote itself, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all," goes along well with the jumping girl, but notice how the word life is large and in bold capital letters to signify that it not only is important, but it's a serious matter. And then how the words daring adventure are written in a fast cursive to suggest something done quickly and without much consideration. The rest of the quote is done in a more common style font. This is a great example of using a quote, which is a text element, with a variety of fonts, which is a visual element. Here's another visual element example of motion, but what is really unique about this page is that I did not use frames around my photos. I wanted to show the people moving down the zip line, almost as if in one fluid motion. And when I added frames, it cut the motion into individual pictures and it lost a great deal of that fluidity. So this is one of the few pages where I don't use photo frames. On a side note, maybe you notice that the font size of the text element decreases as you move across the page, and this was done to emphasize the change in the distance. Now, visual elements can rely heavily on the addition of stickers to the photo page. Check out this page. Right away, the large arrows command your attention, and this is a great way to engage readers because everyone knows that arrows are important. I created this page to emphasize the close distance between the two castles while also showing a closer photo of each so the reader can recognize their basic differences. Notice how the title of the page is called Preview of the Castles, which prepares the reader for a more detailed account of this particular event. This is an awesome way to engage a reader into becoming committed to the photo book. They can't wait to turn the page and see or learn more about the castles. Let's revisit this photo book page for two visual elements. Answer this question. What do you do when you're reading a textbook or a paper and you come across something really important, something that you don't want to forget? What do? You highlight or circle it, right? Well, in this photo page, the little girl is climbing the hill in all of the photos, but I really wanted to make sure the reader noticed this. So I added a sticker that looks like a white pen around the girl. This adds emphasis to the photo, to which the reader will take an extra second or two to check out. The circling encourages engagement. The other visual element I wanted to make note of on this page is the use of different framing. This is important for two reasons. First is that it adds interest to the page because it creates a difference between the photos, and differences is what gains the reader's attention, not similarities. Also, the fact that some photos are given a larger frame helps to attract attention and emphasize that these are the most important photos on this page, and the reader should really take note of that. Let's look at a page that uses visual elements, especially framing, to the extreme. This photo page documents a first-time surfing lesson, and if you take a quick look at the pictures, you'll notice that they're nothing spectacular, but it's all I have for this event, and it's important to me as the author of the photo book to document it. So this is an instance where we have to rely heavily on visual elements to engage the reader because the photos aren't that great. To draw attention to the less than stellar surfing photos, I added a double frame. Similar to the photos on the left, I added double framing or frames with embellishments or like corners or tape. I had fun creating the surfer terminology in the center of the photo page, which uses text in a variety of fonts to engage readers on surfing lingo. The page is aesthetically pleasing with the color combinations, and the sticker elements really complement the theme. It's a nice photo page, even if the photos are not all that great. I wanted to share with you another use of framing photos. Take a look at the right side photo page. I framed all the photos in a red color, but then you'll notice 3 of the photos have an additional rectangle behind them, and I used this to add the name, date of the piece along with the artist. This is another way to make your framing engaging. A really fun way to combine visual and text elements is to use word bubbles for your candid shots. Check out these crabs I photographed on the beach. By adding a bubble and some silly commentary, I've given the crabs personality and it gives the page some humor. Likewise, I did the same on this page where we fed some fish pelts to some koi. So I hope this video has taught and inspired you to use text and visual elements to make your photo pages more engaging. Remember that gaining reader interest is actually the first step to photo book design, so make sure you watch my videos on randomizing and aesthetics. So you can have a complete understanding of the design process, and if you want to know the exact background, frame color, and embellishments I used on some of my photo pages in this video, please be sure to check out my recipe videos as well. Have a great day, everyone, and happy designing!